I'm happiest in the saddle.
A fellow sportsman.
I am an FBI agent!
Great Scott!
What do you say we cut the chit-chat? A-hole!
Dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria!
Come with me if you want to live.
Hello, and welcome to Retro Ramble. I'm Charlie McGee.
I'm George McGee.
And this time we are back. We are back to one of our favourite actors and one of our favourite movie genres. It's only, hang on a second, it's Cliffhanger. Cliffhanger from 1993 and Renny Harlin, is that right, George?
That's correct, yes. Renny Harlin, 1993, so big comeback year for Stallone. He did this and Demolition Man. What a year.
And still, they did very well. I think it was top 7, and this was in the year of Jurassic Park, of Mrs. Doubtfire. What else was it? It was a big year for
Last
film.
Action Hero.
Yeah, but everyone had their vehicles. There was like, and this worked for him. For anyone who's listened to our, George and I are brothers. We go back over the movies we grew up on. It's looking back from today. If you've listened before, you know what to expect. But for any first-time listeners, here's George with a quick word on some general housekeeping.
Thank you, Charlie. Well, as you said, premise of this show is that Charlie and I are brothers, and it's us going back through the films that we grew up with, seeing, do they still hold up? What made them great? Have they gone on to influence other things? So we will be going through these films in detail. There will be spoilers from the very off. I say this is an affectionate, light-hearted look back. So we will be poking fun at these films, but we hope to give you guys a bit of trivia along the way. So sit back and enjoy the show.
Here it is, 993. It's Cliffhanger. Enjoy the show.
They stole $100 million in midair and lost it. Now, to get it back,
Recognize these locations?
they'll make one man a hostage
You're not going after him.
What choice have I got?
and the other a moving target. Cliffhanger, rated R. Starts Friday, May 28th at a theater near you.
Dun, dun, dun. A man, a mountain, a lot of money.
So,
John Lithgow.
we'll get to my money. So, George, it's 1993. We got a year of a lot of movies. 90s were great films. How and why did we get Cliffhanger? Is it something to do with Sly Stallone's career? Was this his last roll of the dice?
Yes. So, I think it is important to say that this film came out. I say 93 was a big year for Stallone, because I think, he was, as you say, last roll of the dice, he was throwing everything at it. So he had this and Demolition Man came out the same year.
Which we've already covered on Retro Ramble. We don't know, I can't tell you, it's episode, so check it out.
But in the early 90s, Stallone had a string of pretty much flops, and they were definitely critical failures, and I don't think they were the commercial hits he was after. I think he even says on the features on Cliffhanger, I had a few projects that weren't what I expected them to be, or something like that. But he had, so the three main projects there was Rocky V, which is 1990, and most people generally regard that as probably the weakest of the Rocky franchise. I think it's safe to say.
Correct.
Then there was Oscar, which was a gangster comedy, and I think that's John Landis, actually. I haven't seen it, but it's one of those films that, because it's had such poor reviews, I'm not going to waste my time watching. And there's the hit that he was after, that he was hoping to chase Arnie's tails, which was Stop or My Mum Will Shoot. So after those three, he was kind of in desperate need to sort of regain that box office clout and credibility he had in the 80s. But this was, this film was kind of developed from the late 80s onwards. So this is produced by our good old friends that crop up throughout lots of retro Ramble films. Carol Co.
So that's Mario
Casar and Andy Wagner. So yeah, they've produced a whole heap of 80s and early 90s hits, and they were obviously behind the Rambo films as well. So yeah, they had relationship with Stallone, and he was involved with developing 2 projects for them in the late 80s. First one was eventually, it was a science fiction horror film called Isobar. Essentially, the elevator pitch for it was Alien on a train. So it was a futuristic runaway train with a sort of weird genetic mutant alien on board. And it's actually...
I ain't getting on another motherfucking plane with no snake or alien.
Yeah, it sounds a bit like... a little bit like Snowpiercer. It's like this train traveling through a post-apocalyptic America, but it's got a monster on and it's working its way through. It's featured in the book that I talked about for Total Recall, that films in development hell by David Hughes. And it's featured in that because it was such a high concept script that they spent, I think, millions on it developing the script. So went through directors like Ridley Scott, Roland Emmerich, so Stallone was attached, and Kim Basinger was attached. Joel Silver was going to produce it, but it just became so expensive. No one could agree on the direction of it. I say it's a really good, that book I mentioned by David Hughes, Tales from Development Hell. It's the first chapter in that, so it's worth checking out. So that project fell apart in the year around 91. Roland Emmerich went on to another Carol Co project that we covered recently, Universal Soldier. However, the second Carol Co project Stallone was working on with Renny Harlin, and Renny Harlin at the time was fresh off the success of doing Die Hard 2.
That's what my question, I was going to ask. I recognize the name, and I thought he did Die Hard 3, so thank you for clearing it up that it was just Die Hard 2.
Yeah, so just a bit of background on Renny Harlin. He's a Finnish director. He started off, his background was horror, so his sort of break into Hollywood was he did Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master, which was the biggest hit of the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise until Freddy vs. Jason in 2003.
It's one of my favorites. I've seen it.
Really?
The one, yeah. It was on TV. I just remember it.
So yeah, that was kind of the film that got him noticed, and then he got Die Hard 2 off the back of that. So yeah, Die Hard 2 was not critically loved as much, or as the fans don't love it as much as Die Hard, but Die Hard is obviously one of the best films ever made. But it still was a substantial hit. So
think of all the bad guys in Die Hard 2. I kind of like you, McLean.
And the guy doing Naked Tai Chi, William Sadler, Death from Bill and Ted. So yeah, all these connections from previous episodes. So yeah, Stallone and Renny Harlin were working on the second Carol Co project, which was called Gale Force. And sadly enough, he wasn't somebody called Gale. But the pitch for this was dun dun dun, Die Hard in a Hurricane.
Okay. Go on.
So Stallone, Charlie, you'll love this. Stallone would play an ex-Navy SEAL who has to fight against a group of modern-day pirates who attack a coastal town during a large, catastrophic hurricane.
So it's like Rambo meets Pirates of the Caribbean. Okay.
Yeah, but it's Die Hard in a hurricane, essentially. So Renny Harlin was paid $3 million for, so that was quite a big deal. So I think it was a pay or play deal. So he was paid to direct it. He had full control of it. So he made in terms of, he demanded loads of rewrites, changing the action sequences. So between 90 and 91, Carol Co spent $4 million developing various versions of the script. Then they just basically said, "Oh, it's the $40 million budget. It's too high. We don't know how we're going to make the effects work." So Stallone and Harlin went on, and a lot of the same team went on to develop Cliffhanger, which ironically was pretty much double the budget of this Gale Force project. So from Carol Co saying, "Oh no, it's too expensive, it's not going to work out," they moved on to Cliffhanger. So the script for Cliffhanger came from a script. It was written by Michael France, and his name came up in a previous episode because he wrote the original draft of GoldenEye.
Tina.
It's a little bit controversial because, he sold the script to Carol Co. for, I think, $500,000. And then Carol Co. were visited by two independent producers, Jean Patrick Hines and James Zatolokin, who provided proof that France was not the originator of the story. And it turned out that it had been developed by Jean Patrick Hines and a world-famous climber, an author, an American guy called John Long.
Long John.
Long John Silver, modern-day pirate. Get me an ex-Navy SEAL. So that's why in the opening credits, it's Michael France is credited, Stallone's credited. Naturally, we'll get onto that. But also it says based on a premise by John Long. So I think those producers, so Hines and Zatolokin, got executive producer credits because they had proof that they'd come up with it originally. In classic Stallone fashion, we talked about this in our Tango and Cash episode. Stallone is obviously, he likes to get involved in projects. So he Harlin says on special features, Stallone, I think, did 8 drafts of Michael France's script. And I think it's safe to say there's some dialogue in the film that seems very Stallone-y.
You mean he's just firing it out of his mouth like it's just exposition? He is kind of general exposition. Well, are we getting into the film now? Is there much more you want to cover in terms of production, Chat Island?
There's a little bit more. Basically, just essentially, we've talked about Carol Co.'s financial difficulties with Universal Soldier and Total Recall. So yeah, it's around the same time. So whilst they were the main production company, they got half the budget raised by TriStar, Studio Canal. So as a result, they made even though Cliffhanger was a hit, they made very little of the end profit because they had farmed so much of the distribution out elsewhere. Last thing is in terms of location. So whilst the film is set in the Rockies, I think about 90% of the film was actually filmed in Italy, in the Dolomites.
Dolomite is my name.
Dolomite is my name. So yeah, around the near Cortina, the Tofane or Tofani. I'm probably pronouncing that horribly wrong, so apologies to any of our Italian listeners if we have any. I think it might have just been down to they scouted loads of different mountain areas. Apparently, Renny Harlin says New Zealand, Argentina. I'm not sure why the Rockies wasn't a good enough base for them. I don't know if it may have been too high altitude potentially for the film crew, because that's one of the challenges they had, is getting all the crew, the cameras, cranes, and you see cranes screwed into the side of the mountains and stuff. So I don't know if they had maybe a freer reign with the Italian sort of government. The crew spent 6 months training to work at high altitude. So there's a lot of prep that went into making it happen. So yeah, that is the main bulk of Production Chat Island.
That was a wonderful journey. Okay, let's talk about the movie. Where do we begin?
There's one thing that we should begin with that I haven't mentioned, and it's quite interesting, is apparently one of the reasons Stallone took on the project is because he has a massive phobia of heights.
Interesting.
And yeah, there are conflicting rumors about how much Stallone does in this film, but you can see there are some stuff where he is doing some impressive climbing stuff.
I probably should stop making the type of I still make the type of notes I used to make when we did our earlier episodes, where we walk through the film. So I really focused on this, and I was just like, it's like, is that a stunt man? No, it's Stallone. But yeah, I think it hits you from the beginning that he's doing some serious, probably with a net and a safety rope, but it's impressive.
No, but there's a very, very sneaky jump cut. When I was in that opening scene, where you've got the helicopter, and she's like, oh, there he is, and you see him doing it, the Tom Cruise hanging off the edge, and that's Stallone. But then the camera goes around the edge of around the side of the helicopter and pans up, and I rewound it a few times, and it's a jump cut because it suddenly jumps back a bit, and then you see him climb up the rest of the mountain, and that's not Stallone. The way they've done it. So it's obviously him doing the quick hang, like, oh yeah, look at me. And then the big climb is his stunt double, who had to bulk up apparently to obviously match Stallone's physique.
Stunt climbers? No, I mean, I was impressed with, we'll get onto this, but it's the physicality of it, the scenery, what I was going to ask you, because we've covered it before, when we covered Demolition Man, I would say, I'd put it out there that I think Cliffhanger is one of his best action movies, Stallone.
Well,
what else would you think is better? I mean, I think Rocky and Rambo kind of stand alone. They kind of established their own genres. So I think...
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I was going to say, once you take... And I think this was doing the rounds on Twitter recently. Someone's like, oh, someone is really annoys you, those sort of tweets that are like fishing for a reply saying, name a Stallone movie that's not Rocky or Rambo. And like, obviously loads of people take the bait and fire
Tango and Cash
for Tango and Cash. But no, I think the Rocky and Rambo franchises are obviously so integral to Stallone and are two huge franchises. But yeah, once you remove them, and obviously, yeah, there's stuff like, Copland is one of his best performances. I
was talking about that tonight with my wife about, in my opinion, that being his best performance as an actor.
Yeah, again, and best for, I know he's done, he was nominated, and a lot of people say he was robbed for, the supporting Oscar for Creed. But again, that is part of the Rocky franchise. But yeah, I was thinking about this. Once you take Rocky and Rambo away, I would say this is one of his best action films. I'd say it's right up there.
Well, that's why my question to you is, what's better? Because we've covered Demolition Man. That's funny, it's quirky, it's a bit zany, it's in the future. Whereas this is a bit more grounded, and it's him in a different type of role. We'll get onto it later in the podcast, but he's not kicking ass. He's kind of using his mountaineering skills and his muscle more than knowing how to box or do martial arts. Yes and no.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of really like the well, we're both sci-fi nuts, and I kind of like that sci-fi future satire of Demolition Man. And I think Demolition Man probably has got more repeat viewing.
I think you're right. It's kind of like it's the trippy version. What if?
Whereas this is just a good sort of nuts and bolts.
It's a classic action disaster film.
Yeah, 90s actioner.
Yeah.
And as you say, may as well tackle it now. It's that high concept 90s, it's Die Hard, or Die Hard on a
mountain.
Under Siege, we've covered, Die Hard on a boat, Speed, Die Hard on a bus. This is Die Hard on a mountain, which is ironic because I think Renny Harlin was like turned down loads of projects like after Die Hard 2, like, oh, I don't want to do another Die Hard. The script for Cliffhanger, yes. And I think that's the way they both talk about it in the special features is, and probably one of the reasons why this film is a joy to watch is they both were drawn to like making an action movie on location on a mountain, even though they obviously do some stuff in a studio, and sometimes it's very obvious. Because they do so much stuff on location, I think the studio stuff really sticks out like a sore thumb in this. I
totally agree with you, but I came away from this film thinking the amounts that happened and the age of this film, if that's all we can throw at it, it's like we're really splitting hairs because this was pre-CGI. There are some explosions in this which are very basic CGI, 90s CGI if you were pre-Star Wars type CGI. So it was very rudimentary with the plane crash and stuff, but there's so much physical stuff going on here that you can kind of allow them to have these, like, yes, there's a few shots, they're in a studio, that's in a studio, oh my God, he's on a mountain, that's a different mountain, oh my God, we're in a different country. Do you know what I mean? I think that's all kind of obvious looking back from today, but if that's the only criticism we can level at it, it's a very well put together film.
Well, that's it. That was one thing that when I was really nitpicking watching it, and about the whole thing it being filmed in Italy because
just different types of rocks here and there. It was like went from being grey rock to being brown rock. It was kind of obvious, but you didn't question it.
And that's the thing, the stuff you don't question at the time, but I found myself questioning when I watched it the other night, and it's really nitpicky, and it's very privileged as well, because obviously you and I have been lucky enough. We've been to Colorado, we've been skiing and stuff like that, and you can tell what it's like. Whereas this, as you say, is like the rocks aren't like that in North America and Colorado, and the fact that it changes from being really rocky and then all of a sudden they'll go around a corner and there's loads of trees. It's like, there aren't trees at high altitude.
Not above a certain height, yeah. It is very convenient. And then there's other bits where I think the studio bits when they're in the trees and there's lots of snow. And it's kind of obvious. But to me, it reminded me of Die Hard 2. And I don't know what it is, but if you look back at Die Hard 2 now, the chase scenes where he's on the, what's it called?
Snowmobiles.
The snowmobiles. When it's like shot from a distance, it looks really realistic. And when they do the up close stuff, it looks really fake. And you're like, just show him in real life, so they can't win. But it still looks good, is my point. I think.
But there are some very impressive stunts in this, and let's talk about the big opening, because obviously it's probably one of the most memorable parts of this film.
It establishes so many arcs in this film that are, I think, well used.
Credit to Harlin and in this film, that opening scene is especially.
It's like a disaster film. It's amazing. It's so fucking powerful.
But really, as someone, I have a little bit of an issue with heights. Not as bad as Mawaz. She's terrified of heights, but I think most people do have a natural fear. So he's rescuing Michael Rooker and Michael Rooker's girlfriend. And Michael Rooker, you see him jump out on the line, and he's actually doing it.
Should we give the man a few moments here, because he's one of my, I think, favorite bad guys of 90s film, from this and Days of Thunder. And then we've seen him getting the credit that is due with how he's performed in the recent Guardians films. He's really had his moment. But I think he's a really lovable, there's so many characters who play this role well, but he does it very well. He's
he's one of those guys that we always talk about in the retro Ramble films. He's just a brilliant character actor that everything he crops up in, even if it's a small role, he'll put in a brilliant performance and a very committed performance. And he does a very good balance in this of being a bit of a dick. Obviously he's got his reason to be a dick with Stallone for dropping his girlfriend.
But it's the same in Days of Thunder. In Days of Thunder, he's his arch enemy, and then they both take those rental cars out. We'll cover it at some point, and they trash them on the beach, and they have a great time together. And then you think about the Guardians films. Recently,
again, it's that, and
it's like he's a shit, but he's a lovable shit. So I think that encapsulates. All character actors have their strengths, and I just think he's played well. And look, he's been in, what is it, two Guardians films? Isn't he in one of the I can't remember now, the last two Avenger films, the Endgame or Infinity War? Is he in Infinity War at all? I can't remember.
Yeah.
But anyway, he had two good films. He's had two good runs in the Marvel Universe. He's got his due, but back then he was just a character actor, bad guy type, lovable bad guy.
And obviously they have a bit of a reunion because Stallone cameos in Guardians of the Galaxy Part 2.
That's so nuts, that whole scene going on.
Yeah.
We're not going to keep talking about Marvel, but how this was a moment in Stallone's career where he was really trying to prove to the world that he still had it. And he did.
Yeah.
And he's gone on and made other films. But the fact that he's appearing in Marvel is because of how successful Cliffhanger was. It's nuts.
So, it's a fantastic stunt. Rewatching it, and I think one of our followers on Twitter pointed this out. I think it's Lee Hallam said Frank, the old guy, the chopper pilot, he's like grinning during that whole scene. And I don't know if it's just the way he's like portraying his fear, but there's a picture and he's like actively, like, you've got Michael Rooker who's screaming, no, don't do it. And Frank's just in the background going. So yeah, that's a bit odd.
He had to die. That was the crew's decision.
We teased in our last episode, this moment, this stunt is so iconic that it's would be a couple of years later lampooned by Ace Ventura. Instead of a woman, it's a raccoon, and it's just when he's holding his little paw. Hold on there, little fella.
do you want to talk about highlights? What do you want to talk about in terms of?
Well, I was going to move on to the next stunt, but between those stunts, there's obviously him coming back, a year later or whatever, wounded. And I think this is some of the Stallone dialogue that pops up when he's rekindling with trying to win back his girlfriend. And she says something like, I've loved you. I've hated you, but I've always understood you. And he's like, I know, but I gotta go. And I was just like, oh God, I can imagine him writing it. It's like, God damn it, I've loved you, hated, but I've always respected you.
What's he been doing? Like in between the accent. That's the suspicious spin-off I want to see happen. We'll get to that later.
Save it for later. But we've got some 90s adrenaline junkies.
Oh, dude. Totally bodacious, dude.
And I've got, I don't know if it's like, it feels like Stallone was going through his cap phase because he's wearing a cap a lot in this. He wears a cap a lot in Demolition Man. Maybe it was just like, you guys, I really like my caps.
My stylist says I look pretty good in cap. I think you're onto something there, brother. I think you are. Because the way he wears that cap in Demolition Man is kind of like, he thinks he's from NWA or something.
It's a little bit like, well, I was going to say a bit like Brian Harvey from E17, just to add a bit of height to him.
Well, Brian Harvey, who ran over himself.
After eating too many jacket potatoes, ran himself over in a car. Look it up, guys.
How can you run yourself over?
I've tried.
The car was in reverse. Okay. I get it now.
I don't know how you run yourself over.
He managed to do it.
I wasn't on drugs. I'd just eaten too many jacket potatoes. So obviously we move on to the next impressive stunt, the plane hijack. And
wow.
As far as I know, this is, well, I don't know if it's been broken, but it's in the Guinness Book of World Records for the costliest aerial stunt ever performed.
No one had ever done it before. And it's a really long distance because the planes have to be a certain distance apart.
Don't they do it in one of our first podcasts? Don't they do it in Air Force One as well at the end?
That's how they get off. It's how they get off. And you've obviously, this pops up in films when we have to refuel in midair. That's always a tense scene and sometimes with hilarious explosive consequences. But this thing is something that you don't see much. We talked about License to Kill and in The Dark Knight Rises. We've this sort of aerial combat and it just captures the imagination. That's why Christopher Nolan does it. That's why Bond directors do it. It's like, imagine this happened.
Well, that's it. It's a phenomenal stunt, and it's done by a guy called Simon Crane, who I've just recently finished reading Vic Armstrong's autobiography. So Vic Armstrong was, legendary stuntman.
Mr.
Stuntman had done, I think we've chatted about him before, but, he was Harrison Ford's stunt double for Indiana Jones. He did, started off on the Bond films and become, stunt coordinator and second unit director. Simon Crane is a good mate of his, and Simon Crane is his own sort of fully fledged stunt coordinator as well. So he actually went on to coordinate all the stunts on GoldenEye as well.
GoldenEye.
Keep talking about GoldenEye.
I used to watch you from the shadows
as a child. Doesn't make any sense. So yeah, he was paid $1 million to perform that stunt,
which was a lot of money back then,
at an altitude of 15,000 feet. And apparently, he didn't actually make it inside the second plane, but they didn't
actually make it.
His widow's got that money now. No, he would obviously go on to die another day because he would go on to do GoldenEye, not Die Another Day. That was Vic Armstrong. I've mentioned it before. There's a YouTube channel called Corridor Crew, and they usually break down special effects like digital effects, but they also do a stunt range, like a stunt series, and they cover it in that. So they cover that in more detail, and you actually see him, instead of going in the door, he kind of sort of bounces and goes over the top of the plane. But obviously he had a parachute in that end. So yeah, he survived, but yeah, there's some sneaky editing there.
It's nuts. We're getting close to introducing someone.
The money.
Where's my money?
And who's after the money? It is the deliciously hammy John Lithgow and his evil crew.
What is it about us poor British folk getting chosen to be bad guys in American movies? They're obsessed with it.
But the fact is, obviously, John Lithgow is American.
No, but I'm saying the British accent that he puts on is like, how do I be evil? Well, I just speak an English, boy.
Well, I think that's it. I don't...
Fetch.
Fetch. Go on.
It's he once again, we were talking about Sean Connery earlier, I think off
better put your doggy on another leash.
Off the record, but a proper thespian. Let's give it to John Lithgow. The guy's been in the business and had an amazing career and never disappoints.
We may as well jump into it. I've got a good quote from Lithgow on this.
Go, let's talk Lithgow.
It was the beginning of a string of villains that I did. It was the most fun I'd ever done because it was 4 months in Italy, 2 months up in the Dolomites in the Italian Alps. I got to have a great big knockdown, drag-out fight with Stallone. Every actor should have that much fun at some point. You can hit him as hard as you can, and it's never enough for him. I was just dreadful in that film, but it didn't matter. It was such fun. So yeah, he sees it as
3 stars.
3 stars.
I love it. That was John Lithgow. My performance, 3 stars.
But I don't know if it is tied back to the Die Hard thing. You know, obviously Rickman's performance as Hans Gruber, as that very, pretty much British but German villain.
But also very clever. And then you got the last action hero, you got Charles Dance. I'm British and I'm also evil and I'm also super intelligent. It's a thing.
It is a thing.
Well, we like it because without it, we wouldn't have some, the Ian McKellen. Hello.
Acting, dear boy. Lithgow is hammy to the max, and I love his rogues gallery of villains as well. So I love the way the interplay between Travers. Where's my fucking man?
I'm an FBI agent.
But no, to jump back,
everyone is strong character actors. Every single person in this film, even the surfer dudes,
and even Dan from EastEnders.
Especially Dan. This is the best work he's ever done, George. Come on, let's be honest.
But we'll get on to him. But jumping back to the plane heist, the thing that I really like is the misdirection, because you've got the FBI guy that's accompanying them on the Treasury guys, and he looks really evil, and you're like, oh, he's definitely in on it. He's definitely in it. But
he's definitely evil, but he's not. No, he's.
But it turns out it's Travers. But yes, I love the sort of, and obviously, mid-air terrorism thing was a massive feature in the 90s, and probably because of 9/11 is less of an action film trope these days. But yes,
I'm all up for it coming back though. It's enjoyable. It's high risk. Give me more executive decision. I want more films where Steven Seagal dies in the first 10 minutes. Just joking. Just joking. We love you. We love you, Seagal.
But yeah, you've got some great lines from what's the first line from Lithgow when he's like, when he meets up with Stallone.
Is it about time?
No.
We'll get him to the nearest hospital.
Yes, that's brilliant. Brilliant line when he chucks the guy out. But no, when Stallone's
how evil am I? This is how evil I am.
Well, it's a bit like the Clarence, can you fly, Bobby? But it's the when Stallone asks, oh, what have you lost? And he's like, oh, the usual thing, socks, shirts, $100 million.
But no, I mean, the character actors in this are all top drawer. Like, everyone's got their own sort of thing going on.
3 star.
3 star, apart from, obviously, Lithgow's review of himself. But I don't know, there's a bit of, it's like, I get the feeling that Stallone looked at this project and it's like, well, it's like a disaster film, but action. And I feel that's what this is. It's like it starts off giving this sort of disaster film thing going on, and you associate that with being marooned on the top of a mountain. But then there's this, we're going to do a Die Hard. And I don't know, we talk about first memories. We're not going to talk about that this time because we can't remember what was going on when we were 14. We were drunk on cider.
I remember watching this at someone's birthday. Let's throw caution to the wind and probably say it was James Glendoning's birthday, but I remember getting it out on video.
Right. Video from those guys at Gojo Video. So just for anyone who doesn't know, our local video shop was called Gojo Video, and it took us a few years to work out. We were like,
it took me a few years to work out. Come on, Charlie, you can be honest.
That guy didn't have a mustache when I dropped off the video this morning, and took us. They were twins,
identical twins,
and they worked different shifts.
But that's how you told them apart, because one had a mustache, one didn't. I just thought one of them could grow facial hair very quickly. over the weekend.
So, yeah, we rented a lot of videos, and that's why we're doing the podcast. So, where are we, George?
Where are we? We're in the 90s and
1993, Jurassic Park.
So you've got at one point Stallone. I've got my notes. Stallone's climbing a matte painting because it zooms out. It's like obviously him on the side of something, and then zooms out to show like.
And then there's the background's like that's fake, but we are nitpicking. We wouldn't have seen this the first time around because. What did you watch this on? Did you DVD it, Blu-ray it, or stream it?
I DVD'd it. I bought the classic DVD, complete with the "Hang On" cover. So yeah, but I watched it on the projector, and it held up pretty well. You know, didn't look too grainy, too bad.
I think as I said earlier, I just think that. I mean, how old is this film today? You know, it's like it still stands up. It doesn't look that bad. There are films that have come out later. I would say that for example, Episode 1 Star Wars CGI looks worse than the stuff they did here because it's very small. It's just the bits for the plane crash. It's not overused.
No, I'd say I wouldn't really say it's that plane crash stuff. Yeah, there's obviously some miniature stuff done there, but
it's tiny. And then you're back in the real world. There's enough real world stuff going on that you don't really care.
It's more of the set stuff that really I say really stands out for me in this, but has got some amazing cinematography and some great stunts on it. But I've got my notes here. Holy 90s night vision goggles, Batman.
Oh my God, they seem so heavy.
No, but again, airborne terrorism, night vision goggles in 90s movies was such a thing. You know, think obviously it was a key thing in Silence of the Lambs, Patriot Games, this. I was just three off the top of my head, but it seemed like every 90s action film.
Like everything.
Yeah, put on the night vision goggles, and it's like I remember it was such a wish thing as a kid. Really want to get some of them.
Well, let's talk about the other technology. Travis with his key code entry tracking thing. Let's just because how old is this film? So it's 93. So we're talking
almost 30 years.
Almost 30 years old, right? We still don't have GPS that can map out the frickin' levels of a mountain, the contours of a mountain like this shitty BBC graphics manages to do. We still don't have that. We still don't have that today.
I love that. It's just like, where is it? And it goes beep, 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 and just points in like the crevice of the top of a peak. It's like, oh, it's there.
No, but it manages to. It somehow pulls down from the cloud that doesn't currently exist in 1993. It just currently has on file every single contour of the mountain.
Yeah. And
I mean, it's like very much Die Hard, the keypad stuff to enter your name.
I mean, again, it's nitpicky, but Stallone seems to open those very, very secure looking money cases or whatever. I mean, I know they've fallen from a great height, but he manages to open all three of them very easily.
I think one or two of them are open, but the first one he just picks up a rock and hits it 3 or 4 times because he's so tough. Oh, let's talk about his toughness in this film because obviously Sylvester Stallone is, he's a specimen, but it's used and not used in this film. At some moments, he's like ridiculously strong and can climb. He's a mountain boy. He can climb a mountain in his bare back and survive. And other moments in the fights towards the end, he's like, well, I'm not going to be a kick-ass guy. I'm going to use the mountain. It's sort of like, that's his special power. It's his mountaineering skills.
Well, that's the thing. As I say, I think they talk about this a little bit in the special features on the DVDs that obviously, yeah, the lure of making the project was making an action film properly using that mountain environment and to that level of detail it never really been done before. But they do say there's two main deleted scenes, and they said they deleted them because they just felt too ridiculous. And it's in the trailer as well. There's this bit where, the bit where they blow the bridge, that rope bridge. There's a bit where he jumps that whole ravine and is like something like 40 foot. And apparently in the test screening, people were laughing at it because it was so ridiculous. So they realized, and then there was another bit, I think, where he's climbing an ice waterfall. And that was part that was done on the studio. And they said it just looked a bit rubbish. And again, it was like him in his t-shirt. And they're just like, he's a bit too superhuman, too Rambo in this. So they felt they wanted to bring it back a bit, even though I think him running around in a flimsy sort of old cotton jumper is a little bit stretching credibility as well.
It's just so hard, though. He's such a man, such a macho man.
that bit where he pulls himself up on one rock and then just does like jumps up the mountain is.
It's when he's sent on his first mission to get the case from Fetch. It's that scene, and it is the most impressive thing in this film. And it's like even the far away shots where you can see he's clearly on an overhang. That scene where he does where he pulls himself up and like doesn't mid-air press up pull up thing. It's very impressive.
It's bloody impressive, and you see that in the behind the scenes footage. You see they've mounted this like huge crane rig to the side of the mountain with the camera flying up. So I thought that was a bit of camera trickery, but it is a camera shooting up the mountain to where Stallone is. When they're firing the grenades or whatever it is up there.
Yeah. Oh, it's brilliant. It was like that was very futuristic, that panning shot that you're talking about.
But yes, you've got some lovely, really hissable bad guys. So you've got one of the guys.
All of them. They're all developed. Maybe he's just looking back from 2020, the action films we've had of late. But for me, looking back, I would say they're all pretty well developed. Every single one of the henchmen.
Yeah, there's I forget his name, but there's the black guy who's just known as, I looked him up on IMDb, he's just known as Leon.
Oh, Leon. Yeah,
Leon in real life, but he's really hissable. He's a real shit.
A very good bad guy and some serious martial arts going on.
Yeah. You've obviously got the long-haired guy who I think crops up in The Mask as well. I think he's one of the first to be.
He's the one that the dog. No, remember the dog has the.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're ever going to cover The Mask, but yeah, there's some bit of the. He is one of the henchmen in The Mask. I remember that.
And obviously, yes, you have our very own Craig Fairbrass as Delmar. I used to play soccer. I've just realised.
Outside right, it's a brilliant showdown between the two of them.
But I've just realised that I think Stallone has a bit of a hard-on for Cockney gangsters, because if you remember Tango and Cash, you've got Brian James doing a really dodgy Cockney accent.
Yeah. So
something he's got about for Cockney henchmen.
Proper gangsters.
But I think I've written it down. What is one of Dan's lines is? I mean, there's fuck you and fuck the money, but the line he said to Michael.
Oh, he's a racist. He's a racist as well. We'll get onto that later.
He goes, "You're a loudmouth punk slag."
Yeah, you punk slag. Yeah,
loudmouth punk slag.
What came first? How did you get your job on EastEnders? What came first, this or EastEnders?
Brilliant. But I think I need to do some more. I think he does talk about like the audition process, about how he got the job for Cliffhanger. But yes, I think he's Craig Fairbrass is very hammy, but I think everyone remembers him, particularly, British viewers will remember him from, soap opera EastEnders as the bad guy.
But no, the thing is, I think, I don't know about you, because I don't know how recently you've watched this film. I always thought that, I forgot about Michael Rooker's character, what's he called? Is it Hal? I forgot about his comeback. I don't know why, it just slipped my mind. So that was a pleasant surprise. I always thought there was Stallone and Delmar, yeah. I always thought that I don't know why, I think I get mixed up with Die Hard 2, Icicle in the Eye. It's weird. There's snow and stuff. It's in your head, You see those...
Well, you've also got similar death with Leon. You've got stalactite or stalagmite death.
It's whether it's upper or down. It's upper or lower.
Tights go up. Stalactites. Never mind. Write in. Let us know.
Mites go down. All you stalactite lovers out there. None of you stalagmites. No, none of you. No. Get in touch.
And then because obviously Stallone, it's Hal. Michael Rooker saves Stallone from drowning, and he takes out Travers because they're having their fight on the ice on the ice set, which I've said seems reminds me of the BBC Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. It's that kind of level of budget, with the
clearly a studio. Yeah, it's
clearly a studio.
Is that plastic lining? Can we talk about their relationship a little bit, Hal and Stallone? Because I think we touched on earlier, my love or our love, shared love. Could it be of Michael Rooker? In the type of characters he portrays, and it's very well suited to this plot. And I wonder how much influence he had, because I think it'd be very difficult to imagine this story happening with another actor than him. It's very much at one moment he hates him and they're at each other's throats at the beginning. But you see very early on when he's put at risk, he's very concerned about him. And it's played on throughout the film. And so just to tie it back into what we were talking about, the fight with Delmar, I forgot that it was with Hal. And that's a great fight and a very satisfying end to it. So, yeah, great. But all of these performances are going on. Even John Lithgow's Squeeze, even she's quite, femme fatale. It's like she'd hold her own in a Bond film. So it's all, I don't know.
You mean, Crystal, what's the true meaning of love?
I will show you. but who will fly the plane? Yeah, it's that old one. Who's going to fly the plane? Love it when that pops up.
Oh, did I fail to tell you? I'm also a helicopter pilot. But we talked about it's interesting that this film. Okay, yeah, maybe it's after License to Kill, so some of the aerial stunts, similar stuff's been done, but the stuff with the chopper obviously reminded me of Mission Impossible Fallout. Obviously, the Cliffhanger was the first to do it. Obviously, Mission Impossible Fallout does it much better and on higher stakes. More recently, but yeah, it was the first fighting on top of a dangling, helicopters being done, a Cliffhanger first.
But I also think that whole stunt with the bridges falling apart, all of this, so much going on in this film. That's why I walk away from it thinking Die Hard, and that's not to say good or a bad thing about either. I think it's respect to both films. It's like the amount of explosions and stuff that's done and pulled off well, and the tension that's built up. It makes me think of Die Hard. I'm like, this is a good action film.
Yeah, there's the bit that I thought just now. Obviously, it's very similar to Die Hard, but again, it's a very great moment of tension is when him and Gabe and Jesse are on the really old rope trying to get away from obviously the bomb's about to go off, and they're trying to get across the mountain and they're
running along the side like Tomb Raider style.
Yeah, as the rope's fraying, and it's some really good moments of tension
throughout. There's tension throughout everything, and the fact you're like, oh, not Frank. Oh no, not Frank. You're like, Frank's flying up the hill. I think I'm gonna find him. I think I'm gonna die. I'm such a nice guy. And it's still hard when it comes, but then he gives Hal the knife.
But I think, as we said, Frank did have to be punished for grinning at Sarah's death at the start.
It's by the way, yeah, people have to go and check this out. We don't normally tell you to go and watch the film, but next time you watch this film, just look at Frank's face when that girl's about to fall to her death. It is terrifying.
He's grinning like an idiot.
I think there's a spin-off there. He was like, Frank, it was me all along.
Yeah, in typical sort of almost Bond-esque 90s fashion, Lithgow's death of being kicked into the helicopter, then the helicopter falling and him just going, no!
And then realizing in the last minute and going, yeah, it's, I don't know. I think this answers the question of why do we get so many explosions? And I think because if you want to see the villain going, and you just give us the explosion.
Crunch.
Just give us the explosion. No, but an enjoyable romp. I think what we've made clear today is that this is still a good action film. I mean, it's come up. Interested to see what people think is a better Stallone action film that happened either 1993 or onwards that's better than this, because I think we're both on the same page. This is him and 90s films in general delivering.
Yeah, because you think about, let's call out some of his other films. Obviously, there's The Specialist, which is...
Sharon Stone's Sharon's.
Which was the first DVD I bought, I think. I bought it for the explosions. I didn't buy it for the very awkward sex scene that's not very sexy at all.
Is he in Assassins with Antonio Banderas? No, you say it first.
with Antonio
You're
Banderas.
just racist. That's just...
No, Antonio Banderas is very, very Spanish in that film.
Yeah, that was very much a springboard for him.
No, but
Not so much Stallone.
So that's it. Yeah, you've got specialist assassins. Obviously, Judge Dredd, Daylight, which Daylight kind of feels like
Daylight's a good disaster film.
But it almost feels like a bit of a carbon copy of this. But obviously, yeah, as you say, more of a disaster film. And then, yeah, it kind of, his career kind of fizzles a bit.
Where does Copland feature? Because obviously you and I are both on the same page. That's his best acting performance. When did that happen? That was 96?
That's 97.
97, okay. So he still hadn't got there. So, but let's fast forward. He made a shitload of money off The Expendables. And he's done the Creed films. He's made it at the age he's at. You know, he's had a career and it's continued, and he's been successful. So, and he's given us so much enjoyment over the years. And his better films are some of the best films. You know, we talk about Rocky, we talk about Rambo. The amount of fun that we have with Rambo: First Blood Part 2, probably for the wrong reasons.
Yes. I mean, yeah, there's plenty of other films I think we're going to cover of his. Yeah, there's, you know, we haven't touched any of the Rockies. I was thinking about this. I don't know. I think knowing us, we'll probably jump straight to maybe Rocky 4 or Rocky 3 because, you know, maybe I don't think there's much mileage, you know, in covering Rocky, the first one, in terms of the retro. I don't really know it that well. Obviously, I've probably seen Rocky 4 the most.
No, for me, it's a no-brainer. For us, let's just be honest. You and I, we watched Rocky 4 before we watched any other Rocky film. So let's just be honest. That was the one we watched. It was Dolph Lundgren. It was a great film, and to me, it's my favorite. I see the first one's good, but it's like Bond. It's what it's the age. The film that you're introduced to it. That's normally your favorite. We've done First Blood, but First Blood Part 2 is a very, very different beast. Which I'm sure that might be a drink along. We'll see. So, okay. What else do we want to talk about in this film?
Obviously, you've got Renny Harlin. Well, I failed to mention.
What did he go on to do? So he'd done Die Hard 2, and then he did this. So what did he go on to do?
So Renny Harlin's had a fairly decent career in the 90s. So after this, so he would marry Gina Davis, and they did Cutthroat Island together. So that was the film that
killed
Carol Coe.
Yeah,
but he also did The Long Kiss Goodnight with her, which
was a film that we recently forgot about, and we've added to the list. What a film that is!
Which is a great film. A Shane Black script and Renny Harlin, and he also did Deep Blue Sea.
Oh my god!
Which is
that's why it's so familiar.
A guilty pleasure. So but then I think he's done a fair few turkeys. He did reteam.
He's very diverse.
He did reteam with Stallone for Driven, which I haven't seen. Apparently, someone on Facebook mentioned it and said, "Well, we'll come to it in the listeners' comments." But yeah, apparently I'm not interested in Formula One racing. I think it's about like the American. They couldn't get the rights to Formula One.
Stock car racing? No.
It's not stock car, but it's American Formula One, but it's not Formula One, if you know what I mean.
Right.
But apparently it's terrible.
I don't know what you mean. Okay. Moving on.
So yeah, I don't think Renny Harlin's done much recently.
What have you done for us lately?
But he did have, I say, a fairly successful run in the 90s, maybe early noughties. I think I can't think of anything he's done good recently.
But no, I think overall for me, great action, great effects, great special effects and physical effects and stunt work and stuff where I start worrying about whether or not the mountains match up or
just go with it.
How fast the dialogue is coming, because Stallone is very much, we talk about this on other episodes. He is the exposition for a lot of film. We've got to do this because this is happening. If that doesn't happen, then we have to go to this. And now we're over here. He said he was here. Yeah, he's like, everything he says is the plot. But so just put it on mute. Enjoy the action. So
you don't want to put it on mute because you don't want to miss out on Lithgow and his delicious delivery.
No, I'm joking. There's not just Lithgow. There's also kind of like when you think about Michael Jackson, you think about those weird noises they used to make in all of his songs. And Stallone, he's made some great films over the years, but like Arnie, you get with this. There's a lot of Stallone noises. There's some scenes where he's like being kicked and thrown about, and it's literally, is that some ADR? I'm not joking here, George. There's a bit of ADR in this film when he catches up with his girlfriend, they go to sleep, and it's like he says stuff and his lips don't even move. I think it's when they're cuddled up. It's when he's burning the money. And when they wrap up and they're burning the money, he's like, she's there, and you just see he says something and his lips don't move at all. ADR was required. No, it's a good flick. It's a good flick. It's a recommendation. I enjoyed going back to it, and it's
one of the better Die Hard ripoffs. Yeah, and yeah, as you say,
it's up there with a Air Force One. You're exactly right. It's
Under Siege. Yeah, it's one of the best non-Rambo, non-Rocky Stallone movies.
So that was our review of it. But I mean, we've talked about the actors, we've talked about the directors, we've talked about how this film was made possible. But what about the people who were considered, who could have been part of this, but weren't?
Your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could that they didn't stop to think if they should.
So Coulda Woulda Shoulda is where George lets us know actors or directors that were considered for this movie project, but for whatever reason, didn't get the chance.
So obviously we've talked about, Stallone developed this, was in the frame from the very off, so there was no one else considered for the lead. Now, so these actors that were considered for the role of Eric Quaylen, played by John Lithgow. So this is all off IMDb, so I'm not sure how true they are, but I want them to be true. Charlie, we're going to have a lot of fun with this because apparently the first choice, Renny Harlin's first choice, an 80s singer that if you would cast a very striking, well, he's from the 60s, 70s, it's David Bowie.
Oh my God. From Bond and then this?
But Charlie, if you can't get David Bowie, who'd you go for next?
So I can't get past the idea of David Bowie climbing a mountain. No, George, I can't get out of my... Okay, so who do I go for next after David Bowie? Danny DeVito? I don't know. Surprise me.
But Charlie, let's go back to history. If you can't get David Bowie, who'd you get?
Christopher Walken.
Going up the mountain for my $100 million. Walken was cast and left production before filming began, and so Lithgow was cast last minute. But also on IMDb, I don't know if this is off. We can't get David Bowie, but apparently it says here, Roxy Music lead singer Brian Ferry, who I don't think has any or very little acting experience. So I'm not sure where that's come from.
You said you would never. I will always be an actor.
Stallone, where is the money?
I'm turning off the Brian Ferry setting. Sorry, listeners.
So yeah, that's it for Coulda Woulda Shoulda. It's who was Eric Quaylen, and yeah, so they apparently maybe could have been David Bowie. Christopher Walken apparently was cast. So you could easily see Walken doing it.
God, yeah, I think I'd take either. It's like, I think we talked about this before on another film where somebody in the Coulda Woulda Shoulda is like, yep, just put them back. That would actually be a better film. Sometimes you got to call it, and I like Lithgow. I actually like the idea that I think you could get away if you were to remake this film, which please don't, make it this like two. Oh, shut up, George. You'll have your moment. There was two groups of bad guys, and one of them was John Lithgow, and one of them was Walken. That would be fun. We're getting into some suspicious kind of spin-off ideas. It's suspicious spin-offs.
Yeah, why not? If it was a true mid-90s sequel, let's go down the Die Hard route. Let's bring back Walken, but as Lithgow's brother.
That works. Okay, so how do you flip it? So it's not on a mountain. It is on a... What's the opposite of a mountain? What's the opposite of a mountain, George? Go.
It's underground.
A cave. It's going to have to be in a cave.
No, but apparently... I don't think I could find it. It was on Wikipedia and IMDb. So again, I'm not sure how true, but apparently I think in late 90s, maybe early noughties, there was talk of them trying to do a sequel called The Dam, and it was set all around the Hoover Dam with Stallone's character, and it didn't really amount to anything.
Stop swearing, George. We've got American listeners out there.
Is this a goddamn?
I'm telling you, damn is considered a swear word in the United States of America.
Yeah, so I don't really know how you make a sequel to this, but yeah, we've had so much fun with Eric Quaylen and his team. There's part of me that just wants to see more of them. You know, what were their previous missions? Because there is some very...
That came up in my... I thought about that as well. It's like, why is Quaylen so wanted? Why is this the last score? Why does he care about nothing other than the money? What's his backstory? The Quaylen of the early years.
There is some general exposition from the Treasury guys, isn't it? About like, why have they taken the money? Because they can't do anything with that money because it's special type of bills. Like, oh no, but this guy can. It's Eric Quaylen. And it's like, if anyone can shift it, it's him. It's like, just go with it. Just go with it.
Could have been diamonds. Could have been gold. Who cares?
Where's my diamonds?
That's the other similarity with Die Hard. It's like bearer bonds. Yeah, they're stealing lots of bonds. It's like bonds is not money. It is money. And there's a similar thing going on here. It's like it's basically at the end of the day, there's terrorism, there's high stakes, it's mountains, the stunts, but he's a thief. So that's what it comes down to. It's one guy.
So yeah, that's my suspicious spin-off. I want to see. It could just be like a series. I mean, obviously it's rooting for the bad guy, and you could have a different team, and he ends up with the guys, and then it goes into prequel series with Eric Quaylen and his team. Well,
and if that doesn't work, you've always got the one that you could just kick down at Channel 5 or some other streaming service, which is like what Dan from EastEnders. Him actually trying to be a striker. I think that's something that he would like to see being made.
Definitely. But apparently, there is, I think it was a few years ago, they've announced a reboot, an all-female led reboot. So I'm not sure, obviously that previously hasn't gone down well with beloved films like Ghostbusters. And I'm not sure how it would work and what's the point. Why not just make a totally different film? Obviously you got...
Since then, though, we've had, 27 hours? What's it called? 127 hours? We've had films like that and we've had K2. We've had some very impressive true life.
Everest.
We've had, but some films that are based on true stories, which are more shocking than anything in Cliffhanger. So it is that sort of disaster movie action layoff, but it worked then. But looking back now, we've had better since, is my point.
No, I was thinking female-led action movie, but no, set on a mountain. But as you're saying, where'd you go? You go below. You've got, have you seen The Descent?
No.
Very good. It's about a female team of cave divers spelunking, and the first hour is them just getting stuck in a cave, and it's really claustrophobic and horrible. And then it just switches genres and go, actually, we're going to make it a horror film. There's actually monsters down here as well, and it's Neil Marshall, the guy who did Dog Soldiers, and it's very good.
I will definitely check that out.
It's, I mean, you know me. Well, we're the same. We're the same. You and I. We're not big.
We share the same consciousness.
We're big horror fans, but it's a very good horror film.
No, I think we like clever, either ridiculously funny or very clever horror, rather than the scare tactic shit.
Yeah.
But that everything has its own place.
Indeed. Shall we move on to listeners' corner?
Has anybody got their reviews of the film, critiques, ideas? Is there anybody like a spin-off or something?
So we do have one suspicious spin-off submission.
Yay!
And it was someone on Twitter. So Eric Kriegler, one of many people that we follow on Twitter that does some good Bond stuff, named after the blonde assassin from For Your Eyes Only. And he says he wants a Delmore spin-off.
Bring it on.
And I went back and said, well, he kind of did. He was just called Dan and the show was called EastEnders. So yes, thank you for your submission, Eric.
A lot of people saying, I mean, you can call out their names, but what I liked is the fact that a lot of people sneaking into the cinema. We had a number of people, like the fact that it was obviously a trend that the type of people who listen to this podcast were the type of people that would sneak into the cinema to see Cliffhanger. And some of you got away with it.
So, yes, indeed. I mean, that was very much a 90s thing, wasn't it? Sneaking into the cinema. Oh,
well, you bought a ticket for one film and you got past the ticket, and then you could sneak into another screen. Kids, if you're not doing that already, do it again today. If cinemas,
a Retro Ramble are not responsible for those actions. So, in terms of comments on Facebook, yes, we've got our regular listener Casey Millwood. I think Casey's in Australia. He flagged up the link of Sly and Michael Rooker starring in Guardians together, and he says, "When the woman falls to her death, to this day, still gives me the chills, despite the visual effects."
Yeah, it is a dark opening scene.
Basilio Martins says, "It's too violent and too silly, but it has a spectacular setting, an amazing score, one of the greatest heists in cinema, and the best fake English villain. The teaser trailer alone is the best ever. Perfect action cinematography, easily one of my top 30 all-time favorites." So even though it's
top 30,
even though it's too violent and too silly, it still makes Basilio's top 30.
Man of high standards.
I was going to say, top 30, that's quite a list. And then Lee Hallam, I think Lee was the one that flagged up the picture of Frank grinning like an idiot. He says, "Cannot believe the same actor and same director did Drivel more like. Renny Harlin is their more diverse director." So,
I'm going to check out this Driven film you speak of. It sounds interesting. Thanks, Lee.
Yes, thank you, Lee. Dennis C.K. Pang says, "The prologue is still effective and is more your worst nightmare than Rambo will be." So
yeah,
yes,
it's nice. It's refreshing to see a hero fucking up, especially at the very start of the film. And that's, I think, it kind of imprints on me a disaster type vibe, but it very quickly becomes a good action film.
We've kind of touched on it, but Simon McLaughlin talks about, obviously, the Hang On poster. He had it in the video shop he used to work in, and he had people coming in asking for that Stallone film, Hang On. I mean, I think everyone's got a similar story to that because, yeah, it's the biggest thing on the poster. It's a bit like Edge of Tomorrow, Live, Die, Repeat thing, isn't it?
It is, but I mean, for anyone listening to this, can you imagine the excitement that that's how we got our films? That there was a poster, and then there was a VHS, and then we'd go and ask for the VHS, we'd take it home. Like, or you're just watching it off your phone or whatever. Watching it off your eyeball.
Beamed directly into your brain.
Into your brain via your penis. So,
what? What was that last part?
Never mind. I didn't say anything about that. So, George, what have we got coming up next on Retro Ramble?
Next month, we are going to have, it's another guest special to discuss JCVD, we love him, for his 1994 classic Time Cop.
Time Cop, we did threaten we were going to do it. I actually went ahead and watched it, listeners, and I loved it. So I'm looking forward to covering that with some outside influence. And let's talk about the hair. Let's talk about time travel. But let's not worry about it too much. No, I'm looking forward to covering that.
Fasten your seatbelts. Thank you for listening. Obviously, yeah, we're if you want to get in touch with us, any suggestions, any memes, things like that, obviously we're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. There's our lovely shiny website, retroramble.blog. Anything else you want to add, Chuck?
Yeah, just to say thanks for everybody who's downloaded the recent Coming to America. This was a recent ramble. So this is George and I watching a film of today. Obviously it connects back to our episode 56 where we covered Coming to America, but we've had a great response from that, and yeah, we're still watching films, and films need the coverage they do. So if there's anything that's come out recently that you, liking what we cover on Retro Ramble, would like to hear our thoughts on it, would like to cover it, George and I have got no problem to go back and take another look at a film and share our thoughts on it. So don't be a stranger. And yeah, I think that's about it. Thank you for listening. I've been Charlie McGee.
I've been George McGee.
And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.